Welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Krystal. We're business coaches and retreat hosts for bold, purpose-driven women who are ready to build businesses that actually fit their lives.
This podcast is for the authentic, rebellious entrepreneur who's done playing by everyone else's rules. We know what works because we've lived it, coached it, and savored the journey.
Join us for real talk on business, life, and everything in between.
Hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Serendipitous Rebel Podcast. I'm Wendy, and I'm here with Krystal. And so today's is actually what I think an interesting topic. So I was rowing this morning, and we have coaches or instructors, and he said something at the beginning of class that had me thinking for the entire 45 minutes. And you're like, well, what the heck could that be? And actually, it was something that was so super simple. He said he was giving us permission to let go of what no longer serves you. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. And what it really had me thinking of is, we are high functioning women
who some days higher than others.
Right. Exactly. You notice I had laughed my way through that. And we think so much about, we need a strategy. What this was really telling me today was what I really need is permission to stop carrying things that once made sense, but don't anymore. So, yeah. And I sort of have been thinking about that since rowing this morning. And so I look at Krystal and I say, what says you?
Well, I actually, the first thought I had was it's like the Coco Chanel of life, where you just take one thing off. So for those not familiar with it, Coco Chanel used to say her fashion advice was, before you leave the house, remove one thing. And that was actually the thing that you needed to simplify. Sometimes we have a tendency to overdo it from a fashion sense, which I would know little to nothing about, because if anybody knows me, I care very little about that. That is a low priority for me. But if you think about all the things that we carry, and on this podcast, we talk about the hats that we wear, which we'll link that episode in the show notes. If you've not listened to that episode, it's just when we refer to the hats that you wear, we really do talk about what are the different priorities. Am I wearing my mom hat, my consulting hat, my business partner hat, my friend hat? Actually, even when talking with Wendy and I today, I thought about it. I was like, okay, I'm taking off my business partner hat and I'm going to put on my friend hat right now. And we were talking about the kids, right? And I mean, I didn't say that, but it is in my mind something that is more in the forefront, right? And so when you think about the things that we need to let go, especially because we do talk about hats on this, I think that the Coco Chanel reference then becomes very handy.
Yes.
Because it is a matter of, one, there's only so many hats or so many things that we can juggle. Really physically, mentally, emotionally, there is a limit. Okay. And that limit is different for everybody, but I don't think that different. I think at the end of the day, we're all juggling way too much.
Sure.
And so when I think about permission to let go, and I wrote it down here when you sent me I can't remember if it was via the Voxer or via a phone call, permission to let go of what no longer serves you. I wrote it down here. And I thought, man, that's such a weighted thing right now in this season of my life, because for me, and I think it's true for a lot of our listeners, 2026 did not start out the way I wanted it to. It started out, it wasn't the fresh start or this reset that I was looking for. It's been a really hard start to the year. and I don't know anybody that really feels differently. And so this feels heavier to me than I think what was initially thought, because there are so many things that are no longer serving me that I have been shedding, that I
Yeah.
have been shedding.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone.
No. Actually, and that's an interesting way to look at it, because no matter what hat you're wearing, what hat we wear, the expectation is that we're capable, that we're responsible, that we're reliable. We're the one that people depend on.
Oh,
And
we're
even
productive.
exactly. We are productive. And it's interesting because even like wearing a partner hat, I want you to see me as being capable, responsible, reliable, dependable, productive, all those things. And when you look at letting go of something, it's hard not to feel like a failure, like you're quitting, like you're disappointing someone, like you're wasting whatever effort you had originally put into it. And I really thought a lot about this again for the 45 minutes I'm sitting on this rowing, not just sitting. And I really thought that it's time to reframe this and
Mhm.
say letting go is not a collapse. It is not quitting. It is not failing. It is not disappointing someone. What it actually is showing leadership. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what does that mean? Well, it means being able to take a step back, looking at different factors, looking at, have I outgrown something? Um, does this particular model at work that we're using drain me? Is there a certain friendship dynamic that's not working anymore? Is there a volunteer role? And I say this and try not to laugh. Is there a volunteer role
Laughing at
right,
me.
that no longer serves you or feeds what you're trying to, like, the problem you're trying to solve? Is there an identity that you built around, let's say, survival, that really no longer is what you need? And is there a pace that's no longer sustainable? So, to say this as clearly as possible, just because something once saved you doesn't mean it's meant to sustain you.
Yeah.
And that I have I mean, I hate to say this, that is a tough nut to crack. But I think, especially at this stage in our lives, I think it's an imperative.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have been talking a lot about this actually behind the scenes beyond just this morning. I know that the thing came up this morning in your row, the permission to let go, but
Mm-hmm.
you actually had sent me prompts when I was on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
was the close of the eclipse season, and it was and you were asking me questions like, what do you feel is like outgrown this container? What do you feel resistance towards? And I think that it's prompted a lot of internal dialogue in Serendipitous Rebel about what is it that what goal how are we going to set goals for this year? What is it that we want to let go in our business? What needs to be simplified or mainstreamed? And so I think about this in term and I really was I promise I was thinking about it through a business lens, but I can't help but think about it
No,
through
you
a
have to.
personal lens,
Of
right?
course.
And I think that it's that old adage, let go or be dragged. And change is so hard. Change is
Yes.
so hard, especially when you think about relationship dynamics that have been comfortable or long term in your life. Maybe it's in your business and it's a business model that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
You've done business a certain way or you've been selling things a certain way. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter where in your life you are looking. We are in the middle of one of the most biggest societal landscape changes of our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction of AI, the geopolitical landscape, everything else is hitting us at rapid speed. They're gonna study this time. Our
Forever. Yeah.
grandchildren are gonna study this time the way
Yeah.
my children are studying the Industrial Revolution and the Civil
Oh,
War
sure.
right now
Yeah.
in school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so by nature, I don't care who you are faced with change right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
And I think that we can approach this in one of two ways, okay? We can either say, okay, I'm scared of change. I am not going to change, which I'll be honest is normally me. I like to put on the brakes. I think of that cartoon character who like puts up on its heels and like skids to a stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel oftentimes when it comes to change. But you can either be that salmon swimming upstream, constantly fighting the current, or you can take the pause. And I think that this is a great question to take in the pause of like, what are we going to let go that no longer serves you? Because we are inevitably going to have that fork in the road. And so
Yes.
what is it that you can let go baggage wise that is slowing you down so that you can be in flow with the
Yeah.
current?
Yeah.
And I know that for me, the things that came up were just changing the way we process content and put out content into the world, right? We've
Mm-hmm.
been doing it for one way for a long time. And I think that our content and our things on the back end of our system have outgrown that container. So you and I are making shifts on how we bring that into the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have let go of relationships this year that have been long term and long standing that are no longer healthy or no longer helpful in
Mm-hmm.
my life. And I spent a lot of time saying, oh, it's just temporary, or no, maybe this is not forever. But I think it's become very clear to me these things need to be let go. So letting go of relationships. But I think as I look through it, it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard though, and it's uncomfortable. And I think about step out of your comfort zone as one of the
Mm-hmm.
pillars of savor. This is so far outside people's comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so interesting because this is really the messy middle. This is absolutely the messy middle.
Ugh.
And yeah, yes. And if you think about it, and like early on in business, and actually early on in business or early on in relationships, you take everything. You take in everything and you're trying to process and trying to figure things out, but everything comes in. It's like, how many courses do you buy, or how many, and even
How many
to some
coaches,
extent,
how many
right,
programs are you in?
right. And in relationships, it's always that beginning phase that's a little bit, what is the word I'm thinking of? It's that idealistic phase. And then during a scaling phase, you start to figure out, how do I optimize? How do I optimize all the pieces, whether it's in business or even in relationships? How do I make the most out of this? Well, in the messy middle, I'm going to hopefully using an analogy that works. You start to prune like a tree. And if you're looking at it, letting go is pruning, because as I stare at the trees in front of my house that I can see from where I'm sitting, if you don't prune your tree, it doesn't grow well. It's like
Yeah.
if you don't trim your hair, it doesn't grow well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, really, not only trees you don't grow well if you don't prune them, but I really believe neither do businesses. And frankly, neither do the identities that we need to sustain us. Because there is an end at some point to the messy middle. We're not there. Don't know necessarily 100% what that looks like, but what we do now is what gears us up for success in the future. Yeah. And, I think that, and again, if we're looking at it, this kind of from a leadership lens, letting go isn't ghosting someone. It's not burning bridges. It's not rage quitting. And I think there's an opposite to that, which is like quiet quitting. And it's not avoiding whatever the situation is. What it really is, and this is truly leadership, it's making clean and clear decisions, mature endings if necessary, strategic exits, and really looking at your own identity and saying, do I need an upgrade?
Wow.
I know, sorry. This is what happens when I row and I think. I go a little, which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing.
But,
no, I think that's so beautiful though, because I'm thinking about this in terms of like Serendipitous Rebel, because I'm going to use us as an example. This is like real-time therapy, guys.
But this is not.
It's not therapy.
Yes.
And we always like to clarify, we're not your therapist.
We're not therapists. We'll do leadership stabilization, but not therapy work.
But not therapy. So process your mommy issues on your own time. But it's really looking at, okay, you've tried all these different, so we've done these, we are actually working on this ebook, Break Up with Blueprint Business, and we've done a workshop called Break Up with Blueprint Business. And so it's all of these courses and stuff that people have bought over the years, and all of the things that you're going to add into your business. Because we try all the different things when we start out, right? Maybe you try a course, maybe you try doing a group program, maybe you try selling all kinds of different things. Actually, you name it, we have probably tried it.
Right.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of what we've done in the last couple of months, if you've not been on our website lately, it's looking leaner because we are trimming back what it is that we offer, really mainstreaming what it is that we do, so that we can even clearly identify to people when they ask, how can we work with you? Well, there's actually like 3 ways, right? There's strategy sessions, one-off, there's ongoing month-to-month coaching, or there's an in-person, in-depth experience with our mastermind retreats, right? I can tell you a year ago, I could not have said that so plainly.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the clarity that came from simplifying all of our offerings and everything, how we help people and all of our expertise, the mental load that it has freed up in our business. And then, from there came the messaging clarity and everything else. It's been phenomenal.
Well, and with that, I would encourage our listeners to ask yourself, and these are kind of the steps that we took in this process. Where do you feel friction? Where do you feel obligation, but you have no energy for? Oh, that's a huge one. And where are you maintaining something out of history, but is not in alignment? So, take a few minutes and just think about that. And then if you give yourself permission, what would you release? It doesn't have to be exactly like right now, but just to be aware, because you need the awareness in order to take action.
Yeah. So did you have an answer? I know I'd asked you, but
so, it's so interesting. And I love that you talked about what we've just gone through in terms of streamlining our offers. And it's interesting because for me, it's leaning maybe away from a lot of the strategic stuff, because that's your strong suit. And I'm more of the reset person. If you want to talk about like leadership stabilization or something, I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty comfortable with resets and things like that. So I think for me, a little bit of friction had been leaning less into like the reset offers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about that. But I will say overall, and this is really an interesting place for me to be. And this probably will come up in a future episode. I'm hitting like a 10-year mark of really radical change in my life. And so I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I will say that I've taken a lot of action, less so right now. you know I'm like, I'm in a really good place.
Well,
But I always ask those questions because, again, awareness is the critical piece of it. And we talk a lot about curiosity, and I always think of awareness and curiosity kind of go side by side. You check the judgment, and you just sort of look at things from a clear head, clear eye. And yeah, yeah.
so, and what I like about that is that when we say that you should let go of what no longer serves you, that doesn't need to be major shifts. You said we're really comfortable
Absolutely.
where we are.
Oh,
And so what I think is interesting
yeah.
is like we didn't need to close down Serendipitous Rebel, right?
Oh, no,
Um,
of course not.
it was just a matter of, okay, in looking at the overall offerings, like the big picture of everything that we do and everything that we've tried over the years, how do we streamline it and simplify it? And then, and even in the way that
Mhm,
we approach all of these things, how do
mhm,
we simplify it? And I think that when people look at their offer suite, right?
mhm.
There's so many different tactics and so many different ways that we could be doing business, and where we end up burned out is when we're trying to do all of them. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think that the other side of this is, in this question too, is I think it helps with time management, because that's a
Yeah.
huge piece of it as well. We only have so many minutes, hours in the
Yep.
day.
Mhm,
And when we think about us as women, which is a whole other podcast episode of what is our capacity,
mhm.
right? And so letting go of what no longer serves you, if you're having a hard time because you're feeling that the obligation of it is pulling at you a little bit harder than not,
Yeah.
when that obligation is taking away from the bigger goal of something else, that's not an obligation. That's becomes like a prison at that point too. And so that helped
Mm.
me really reframe. In when I said no, I've cut back on a lot of volunteer things. That's why I laughed earlier when Wendy said that, because she knows I've cut back a lot on volunteering at my kids' school. And I did that because I felt like I should, that I was required to, whatever. And saying no has really allowed me to say yes to more stuff with work, which has furthered my momentum in my work sphere, right? And so
Mhm,
it was
mhm.
just letting go of those things was hard to say no.
Yes, yes, yes. And and looking at this, from like a holistic point, because
Mm-hmm.
it isn't just work. It's really how you can do this in your whole life. I would be remiss, or we would be remiss, if we didn't actually see how this fits into savor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, and you can stop me if you think I'm incorrect on any of this, but stepping out of your comfort zone means really looking at letting go of oh of letting go, because letting go is uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And I know that with, say, your volunteer struggles, you don't want to let go, you don't want to disappoint, you don't want to, but come on, what is best for you? And that is something that takes a little practice, takes a little work to be able to do that. And really also when it comes to alignment, and it's what fits now, not last month or even last year or a year from now. And I think that some of us live in just sort of a bubble that is very much it's either directed backwards or forwards. And I think that being in the now is something that's even harder than we think about. Venturing under your own power is really, are we making choices consciously? Are we really making choices that, and I always think about moving the needle forward. Does this choice get me more meters or not? No, just kidding. But is it really?
She measures everything based off her rowing spreadsheet, guys.
I know. Very scary. But these are conscious choices. And I think that a lot of things, even small little things, if you think about it consciously, it's like, do I drink enough water? No, actually I don't. Or, is exercising? Whatever the venturing under your own power, launching a new offer that you've wanted to do, but just have been kicking the can down the road. And maybe if you free up, like what we did, we're looking at releasing some things that we've done in the past that just don't fit us anymore. So what are we doing? We're going to launch new things. Wow. That just, and it's actually very freeing. And when I think about like open to connection, I really think about releasing whatever isolates us. And I think
relations of obligation.
Yes, very much so. Yes. And that's so important. And I don't know that people take enough time to really focus on that. And I always knew this. Yeah. And when we're talking about, especially, we've talked about regulating our nervous systems. And again, it's something that we don't think about, but keeping us out of a state of flight or fight is really, I think, what we all should be aiming towards. It will live a longer, happier life. And then the ritualizing piece is really acknowledging and marking the endings that are occurring and paying homage and then moving on. It's like we've talked a lot about doors shutting, doors opening, doors shutting, doors opening. And that visual alone is really an important thing. And just to end this long speech I made, letting go is not about destruction. It's not looked at as a way to destroy life, a business, anything. It's really how to best integrate the various components that make up your life and allow you to feel joy. Yeah.
And that's why we say all the time, it's joy on your own effing terms.
Yeah.
And so that looks different. So for some of you, it is volunteering with school every week because that brings you immense amount of joy. But but if it's starting to bring stress and resentment, then that's a good sign that that's something that's time to let go. I love this. And so I would love for people to DM us, what is it that you are going to let go that no longer serves you? And until next week, we're going to continue letting go everything. No, I'm teasing. We're not letting go anything. Burn it all to the ground. No, don't do that. That's the destructive piece.
I think you really need a spring break.
Oh my gosh, I am. Yeah, I leave for spring break. I'm going to let go of morning school routines because, oh my gosh, they're going to kill me.
Yes.
I pick it back up after spring break, but oh my gosh, I'm going to let go of alarm clocks for a whole week.
Yes, and it's not going to kill you. It's not allowed. Not allowed. Anyway, on that note, we will see you all again very soon.
right, bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about our upcoming masterminding opportunities on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.
Hey, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.